Podcast Answer Man, episode number 60.
This show is sponsored by AG Design.
Need a new website, logo, or artwork for your podcast? Visit ageedesign.com/podcast today.
For a 20% discount, be sure to mention the Podcast Answer Man.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft. Today, I'm going to be playing for you an interview that I recently did for a good friend of mine, Andrea Zuniga, from geekischic.org. She has a podcast that she does, and she wanted to interview me, and so today, I'm simply going to play that for you because it fits into podcasting.
I wanted to say that it was definitely a pleasure to meet you in Podcamp NYC. It was lots of fun.
I had a blast in New York. It was the most wonderful in-states kind of like trip or whatever you want to call that, the little weekend getaway travel. It was an awesome experience in New York City.
Definitely. New York City is quite amazing. But what I wanted to pick your brain about was Podcamp, and what your thoughts were about Podcamp NYC.
Podcamp NYC, probably, I would say that, wow, it's kind of hard. I mean, well, first of all, I've been to 3 of them. I went to Podcamp Boston 2. I've been to Podcamp Nashville, and I've been to Podcamp NYC now. And wow, you know what? I'd have to say that Podcamp NYC was probably tied with Podcamp Boston 2. Now, the only thing I can say though is as far as enjoying the city and enjoying the location as much as, I would say that I enjoyed New York City more. But I'm talking if we strictly stay and compare the Podcamp experience, the party, the socializing, the gaining of knowledge, the networking, all of those different things, all of those elements, I would say that Podcamp Boston 2 and Podcamp NYC pretty much on equal footing.
That's pretty cool. I wanted to get your opinion based on the fact that you had been to several podcamps. That was my first Podcamp NYC, and I think that one of the coolest things for me was the whole unconference feel. I think it was like a perfect balance of organization and spontaneity. What do you think about the whole unconference thing?
I'm a fan of the unconference thing. I'm definitely not anti-conference. There are some drawbacks, I do believe, from the unconference, but the nice thing is that if things are organized well enough, those drawbacks can kind of be mitigated. So for example, I have been actually in all 3 podcamps that I've been to, there have been some sessions that I've attended that, well, had somebody, for example, here's the one thing I do know. I know that when I go to Las Vegas in August and I go to the New Media Expo, I happen to know that those speakers are a select few out of many applicants, that many of them all have very high recommendations from other people, and so that they've kind of weeded out some of maybe just the so-so average kind of presentations, and they've actually gone through and really picked the good quality stuff. At least that's my impression. Now I'll be able to tell you better about that when August comes around.
Right.
But here's the only thing that the only drawback I see is that sometimes there are sessions at these podcamps that are just they're not that great, and they're not grabbing. They don't grab you. And of course there were 2 sessions there were 2 sessions at Podcamp NYC where the person giving the presentation did not show up. And right. so those are some of the drawbacks, I think, to having the unconference, or some of the, I guess something that doesn't require a little bit more commitment than just saying, hey, here's who I am and this is what I want to talk about. Please put me on your schedule kind of thing.
Right. I definitely can agree with that. But I thought one of the cool things that came out of those sort of failures, in so to speak, was that people stepped up, and you kind of had still like a feel of free flowing of information, and people kind of stepped up and kind of took over the session. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
That happened on one of the two. The other one kind of just bombed completely. So,
Oh, wow.
so I mean, yeah, I mean that of course, and that's what Podcamp is. They even just say, hey, if all of a sudden you're all there for, let's say, a session on search engine optimization for your podcast or whatever, if everybody shows up but for that topic, and the person who is designed or set up to give that presentation doesn't show up, then by golly, somebody from the group just stand up and give that presentation. I mean, just start talking. And that kind of did happen in one, but it didn't happen in I went to one on Second Life. I was so super psyched about going in and doing a session and talking with other people who are really involved in Second Life, and really getting a feel for whether or not I wanted to get my feet wet in that territory, and see if I wanted to dive into that alternate reality that so many people are involved in. And
yeah, definitely.
And they didn't show up, and only 3 other people were in the room, and it just
they were looking for the same thing you were doing, not ready to get up and lead, so to speak.
Exactly.
Well, I think one of the during our time there, one of the things that you mentioned was that sometimes it's okay to skip a session and kind of mingle.
Yes.
Which I think that's kind of why I think the whole unconference thing is kind of cool, because it allows you to give you that freedom, and also wanted to get your feedback on what you thought about the whole rule of 2 feet. For those that don't know, is that if you don't feel you're getting something out of a session, you can step out and go to another. Do you think that kind of balances and remedies the situations such as a Second Life where the person didn't show up?
Well, I don't think the rule of 2 feet really does one way or the other on the session where the person doesn't show up, because you don't even need a rule of 2 feet to walk out when a quote unquote session leader is not there. However, there every now and then you'll get into a session and it's like, okay, this is way more basic than I anticipated, or it's like, yeah, this isn't really going to be very beneficial for me. So there's better things I could do with my time. I will say that the law of 2 feet definitely works in those cases. You can just, by golly, you get up, you walk out, and it's just it's already known ahead of time that people will get up and walk out of your session. And that's even in the session that I gave, it would not offend me whatsoever if somebody got up and walked out halfway through my presentation, because you know what, Podcamp is there for them, not for me, as far as being the session leader. And I love the law of 2 feet.
Cool. Well, let's step into that. What is your take? How do you feel it's different from being a presenter to being somebody that's taking it in? What's your take on the two experiences from a Podcamper attendee?
Well, let's just say, the very first Podcamp I went to, I didn't know what to expect, and so I was just an attendee at that point. And then when I went there, and of course when I saw some of the presentations, like, okay, I think I could definitely become a presenter. And so what I did is I decided from that point in time, I'm definitely going to be hitting more of these Podcamps, because I want to do the networking, the building relationships with new people. I mean, just really all of those aspects. And for me, I couldn't, and of course this has I think a lot to do with my personality, but I don't think I'd ever want to go and not sign up to be a presenter. One of the things that I found is being a presenter, it's a lot easier to network with people, right after a session.
People feel kind of like you're open to welcome you and to talk to you, because they've already had that sort of a connection that, oh, you've already opened up and you've already shared your experience. So I feel more comfortable going up to you and saying, hey, that was cool, or what do you think about this? It definitely opens up a lot of lines of communication, I think. Absolutely,
because here's what happened even at Podcamp NYC. It was the next day, and I was standing outside, and somebody just came right up to me and said,
Yes.
hey, I want to let you know I was in your session yesterday, and I thought it was wonderful that you said this, this, and this. Just really wanted to introduce myself and say thank you for that. Now, it was kind of funny. I remember, because we were kind of all outside waiting to go to the next session, and it was completely the next day, and it was pretty cool for them to have that
open dialogue and connection to you.
Right. And so if I were just an average attendee standing there and I hadn't been in front of them, now that person may, number one, they may have never even have heard of me, or number two, even if they had, they may have just kind of walked by kind of embarrassed or too shy because they didn't have that first connection of, how can I start a conversation with them kind of thing. Does that make sense? So
no, definitely.
So definitely, it's a total icebreaker for me to get up and present in front of a whole group of people, and then all of a sudden just basically have that be the icebreaker and say, hey, I'm here all week and twice on Sunday. So
except Sunday is your day off now.
Exactly.
That's cool. So, what do you think is your favorite thing about the whole Podcamp movement?
My favorite thing about the Podcamp movement is that anybody can do it, and it doesn't take you don't have to there's not any red tape that's involved. You can make it as elaborate as you want. You can make it as simple as you want. Podcamp Nashville was a perfect example of that to me. It was completely different than my experience at Podcamp Boston or NYC. It was a venue where it was just one stage, and presenters were all on the same. Everything was there on one place, and you couldn't walk out. There was no. It was completely different. However, it wasn't a bad experience. It was still good. I still got a lot of the same benefits out of Podcamp that I would expect to get out of Podcamp, such as networking with people. It's actually sitting in on a handful of good sessions, and still having the social party that night or something like that. There are things here or there that are different, but that's what's cool about Podcamp is it's not a cookie cutter conference. It's going to be different no matter where you go. Each one's going to have its own flavor, and what's cool is that I think that no matter who shows up, everybody feels like a peer.
I definitely agree. I think that's one of the first things I noticed. I tend to be like the person that most of my friends go to for technical advice or sort of that new technology or what isn't that they're going to talk about next. And I think it was really cool to be like, there's people that know a lot more than I do, and there's people that are doing the same things I'm doing. They have Twitter open. They have their iPhones going. Their cameras are videotaping. Like that for me was like really cool. It was kind of like... It
was a total geek fest, that's for sure.
Exactly. And it's just like, ooh, welcome to my geek home.
Exactly.
You mentioned you went to Podcamp Boston, Podcamp Nashville, and then now Podcamp NYC. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that Podcamp Boston and NYC and Podcamp Boston and Nashville are one-day conferences, right?
Say that again?
Podcamp Nashville and Podcamp Boston were one-day events, right?
I don't know about Podcamp Boston, the original, but Podcamp Boston 2 was a 2-day event.
Oh, okay.
But Podcamp Nashville was a 1-day event.
Oh, okay.
And
what preferred?
I would prefer a 2 or 3-day event.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that as a 1-day one would seem a little rushed, or it would seem like you couldn't fit in everything. And I think that one of the things that people are afraid of from the Podcamp movement is that people aren't taking it seriously. Like, oh, since I don't have to pay per se, I might just sign up but not attend, So I think that, not that it has to be super long, but I think a 2-day might give it more of a legitimacy. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know about legitimacy, but there are definitely some awesome, because again, one of the cool things about Podcamp is that you don't have a form. It's not required that you do 2 days.
Right.
So what's cool about Podcamp, right? Or that you don't have to charge. The thing is that what's neat is if maybe you only have enough speakers to fill a 1-day event, and maybe you only have 25 or 30 people that show up. You can have a 1-day event and still call it a Podcamp and have it be an awesome experience. So I definitely wouldn't see that it's not a legitimate Podcamp. But let me tell you, when you have a big enough crowd and you can pull off a 2-day Podcamp event, I will tell you, I'm going to love that more than anything else.
Okay.
And the reason why I would like the 2-day the best is there are a couple of reasons. Number one is that the party. Typically in a Podcamp, there's going to be a social party event. And this year they had a party at the place called Rebar in New York City, which for me, it was a little too loud in there to really have some great interaction. So that wasn't as good of a party as the one at Podcamp Boston 2. Podcamp Boston 2, they had it in this place called Tequila Rain, and it was a bar, and it was such an open environment. I mean, there was so much open area, and it just seemed like in Rebar we were all crammed in like sardines. For me, I don't think anybody would believe this, but in a crowd of people, I'm not an extrovert. I am a total.
Yeah, that's understandable.
In a crowd of people, I tend to shy away from interaction unless I'm the one presenting to the crowd. I can present to the crowd, but put me in a crowd of people and you're all scrunched together, and I get a little nervous. But in a crowd of people where you've got clusters of 5 or 6 people in little semi-centric circles all throughout this place, like they had in Podcamp Boston 2. At Tequila Rain, it was easy for me to kind of just walk up, mosey in, and just like all of a sudden it's like you just realize this is a group of about 5 or 6 people who are talking about things. Sure, you're just now coming into the conversation, but you just sit and listen for a little bit, and then all of a sudden when something comes up that is something that you can speak to or have a comment on, then you just introduce that and you introduce yourself, and it was a lot easier to have that networking ability. But here's what I saw at Podcamp Nashville. Podcamp Nashville was a one-day event. So a lot of people came in the night before so that they could be there first thing in the morning. And as soon as that long day was over, boom, they're out the door and they're heading home. They didn't stay for the party.
Right. Makes sense.
Yep.
They don't want to have to pay for another night of hotel and stuff.
Exactly. So that was a little frustrating. The party at Podcamp Nashville, maybe 35, 40 people stayed. And, now let me tell you, I made the most of it. And
because it's a smaller group, you can probably connect easier.
Yep, absolutely. So I think there are many more benefits, I think, to having a 2-day event. The other thing is that you can meet somebody on the first day and kind of hang out with them at the social party that evening. And then the next day, it's kind of like, you're still building on that relationship, and then all of a sudden when you go back home, it's more of you had some interaction and you've built kind of like a friendship or a relationship with somebody versus a quick handshake in between sessions at a one-day event, and it's like, sure, I think I met so and so, or sure we met, but we really didn't have any conversation, especially if you didn't go to a party, all those other things, and then it's just gone. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely. I think that it definitely helps. I think that we, especially with the group that we were kind of hanging out with, the GSPN group, and some people we were meeting through, we were able to hang out throughout the whole conference. Even if we went to different sessions, we were able to meet up, maybe find a conversation we all wanted to go to, grab some dinner, grab some lunch, kind of keep it going, keep the momentum going of being able to get to know each other.
Yep.
And the people that we met at Podcamp. I definitely agree with that.
Yes, it was a great experience at Podcamp Boston or New York City. That one for me was, as far as the interaction, of course, we all had the benefit of the community here. And,
yeah, definitely.
And that was huge. I mean, I think
it was like our little entourage. It was kind of cute.
Yes, it was. It was neat because no matter where you went, there was always somebody you knew. Mm-hmm. And that really made it interesting because there was no point during the weekend that you were like, okay, so who do I talk to?
Right. Or who am I gonna eat with or anything like that? Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yep.
I think that was one of the coolest things for me too. I got to meet Sharon. I got to meet Christine Peeler, who listened to Geek as Chic, and that was my first experience. And outside of close friends of mine that listened to the show, for me to actually face to face meet some of the listeners. So that was really cool for me. Yeah,
it was awesome. I mean, and we got to meet Mike at the meetup, and it was just really neat to be able to interact and mingle with all those different people that we see in cyberspace and we see in MySpace and Facebook and Twitter and all these other places and the forums at gspn.tv and all this other stuff, and here we are interacting face to face. It was really awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I remember how I found you guys at Podcamp, which is kind of a funny story we should share, is that I was walking towards the crosswalk, about to cross the street towards where the building was, where Podcamp was at, and all of a sudden I'm like, no, minding my own business, and I hear Mark, like Chef Mark, and I was like, that's gotta be Mark. I don't have earbuds on, so it's gotta be the real him. And then, Lord of Behold, 2 seconds later, you and Steph kind of come up behind him, so that was pretty funny, a funny way to meet up.
That was funny.
To connect that sort of internet friendship and the talk shoe phone conversations and all that kind of cool stuff, and to actually get to meet, that was pretty fun.
Yes, it was an amazing, like I said, there's hardly any words to describe it. I mean, people that did not have an opportunity to go really missed out on something awesome. And so I'm hoping that in the future, if there are opportunities to do these meetups again, and you're in driving distance, flying distance, whatever, there is nothing like the friendships that can be formed with people you've been interacting with in a community like ours. I mean, it's like the friendships have already existed. It's like I saw Chef Mark. It was only the second time I've seen Chef Mark, and Chef Mark feels like a brother to me.
Yeah, I bet.
So it's just an awesome experience.
He's the friend you've had for a couple of years now,
Yeah.
just online.
Yes. Yeah, Chef Mark and I have been very close friends for 2 years now, and
Exactly.
we've only seen each other face to face twice, which is really weird.
It's pretty crazy what you can do online these days. And it makes you realize that geek is chic, because this wouldn't be possible without any other technology and all the things such as Podcamp and all these wonderful little geek fests that we can partake in.
Yeah, I really want to say congratulations to launching your show and really going at it, because I hear so many people say, I'd really like to start a podcast. I really like to start a podcast. And so few people actually go and do it. And I think there's something about podcasting, I think, that brings about this expression of who you are and what you like. And it helps, I think it almost even helps focus your understanding of who you are.
Oh, definitely. I remember the first time my computer ever crashed in college. Like, people said I was different when I didn't have my computer, not because I'm obsessed with it, but because I think it's like my creativity outlet. So I feel like podcasting is just like a new avenue that I found, that I'm having so much fun with it. And I thank you for inspiring me to go ahead and get behind the mic, which is really cool.
And you enjoy it too, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a blast. It's been a blast to get feedback and get involved and getting to do things like Podcamp that I might have never done. Like, I've never done New York City that way. I've only gone to New York and done your typical touristy things. So for me to, do New York City that way was a totally different experience than any time I've ever been at New York City. And it was just amazing. It was just really cool to get to see all those pieces come together. So I think that's really cool.
And what I think another thing that's cool is that listening to Geek is Chic, I do hear Rachel call in. Is it Rachel that calls into your show? And Christine Peeler, Maggie calls in. Yes, I hear all these familiar names.
For you.
What's that?
A lot of familiar names for you.
Yes, and so that and that's happened with so many people from our community who's taken the step. You've got Rachel ZC Lisi, who does the Sims 2 challenges, and you've got the Girls Night In podcast, and just a couple other handful of shows. And every time somebody does it and they let us know and we put it out there, I mean, you guys are friends, and it's community and it's family, and people are going to support you. And I just encourage more people to start podcasts. I mean, it's really so much fun.
I definitely think so. And I think just getting out there and just doing it and seeing how it goes, testing the waters. Maybe it might not be the exact topic you want to focus on. Find what you are passionate about. I think that's one of the key things that you've always emphasized. And I think attend things like Podcamps so you can get startups and get ideas and kind of get the ball rolling and tips and things that you can do, or like find a good, a good webinar place. Just Bitcast Media might help you out.
I certainly would love to have people join our webinars. If you're interested, at cliff@gspn.tv. I have some questions for you, if you don't mind, since you're doing podcasting now. Let me ask you, what are you using to host your website?
I am using our wonderful TalkShoe. Well, actually, my website or the files themselves?
The website itself, the actual website.
Right now, I have it hosted through Blogger.
Okay, so you're using a blogspot.com website address.
I did a little funkiness. I have it. I have a domain name that I transferred it to, so it shows up as my like URL that I purchased,
Yep,
but it's
so-
still hosted at Blogger.
Okay, so do you have it masking so that it stays masked, or do you
Yes.
have? Okay, so even
It'll
if they,
show just,
what's that?
it'll just show the domain name. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you hear the most recent episode of the podcast, Answer Man, about the domains?
I'm a little bit behind. I haven't. That's the one I haven't caught yet.
I'll be interested in hearing what you think about the permalink situation on a masked domain. So okay, that's what's that?
Leave you some feedback.
There you go. So, and then the other question I have for you. So, you're using a blogspot page, a blogger page for your website. Now,
Right.
obviously, I happen to know that you are using TalkShoe for the hosting of your files.
Correct.
Now, where are you what RSS feed are you using?
I am using FeedBurner.
Okay, but what did you send to FeedBurner? Did you send Did you send the blogger feed to FeedBurner, or did you send the TalkShoe feed to FeedBurner?
the TalkShoe feed.
Ah.
Yes.
Okay. We'll have to talk about that one later.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
But here, can I tell you something awesome?
Yes.
So basically, when people are subscribing to your show, when you tell them to subscribe from your website, they're subscribing to the FeedBurner address, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. The good news is that you can change the origination feed to your blogger page, and the people on the other end, the people who are subscribed, will not have to resubscribe to a new feed.
Oh, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there'll be a reason later down the road you'll understand why you want to do that.
Sounds like a plan.
Sorry to get overly technical, but hey, this is geek, right?
Geek is chic.
Geek is
Indeed.
chic. All right. So, sorry. No, I won't hijack anymore. Go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. I was gonna kind of get your opinion on. Do you think, from your experience of having gone to a couple podcamps, do you tend to see a lot of familiar faces in between the different podcamps?
Yes.
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 Which is cool, because then you can continue that friendship. Since that was my first one, I was wondering, since you've been to such extremes, such as Nashville and New York and Boston, I figured the northern crowd would kind of go,
Well, the northern
So same-
crowd, the different. I mean, I definitely saw a lot of familiar faces from Boston at NYC that I didn't see in Nashville, but
Okay.
there were quite a few faces that I saw at all three. So, absolutely,
That works.
Yeah, Nashville definitely probably. In Nashville, I only saw maybe four or five people that I saw in Nashville that. Well, no, wait. Now I'm thinking about it. You know what? I take that back. I probably saw about 15 people in Nashville that I saw at Podcamp Boston. So it was much larger than I had originally thought. But anyway, I didn't see a lot of people from Podcamp Nashville also at NYC, though, that I would have thought might have flown up for that event. But, then again, Podcamp Nashville wasn't too long ago, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's true.
And
I think
Podcamp, I'm sorry, go ahead.
it can get pricey to running around all over. New York City is expensive.
Yes, it is.
Indeed. We won't discuss additional tipping charges.
Yeah, we won't go there. Although Chef Mark might do a whole podcast episode devoted to tipping.
Yes.
Yes.
We're going to wait for that. Awesome, Cliff. Well, is there anything you want to share with the audience about what you're doing and what moves you to go to podcamps?
Well, obviously, if anybody doesn't know who I am, which I'm sure you've already started to grow your audience well beyond the original community over here that's listening. So if you haven't heard, I quit my job in insurance after 11 years, and I'm now a podcaster full-time. And I am working in sales of audio equipment for podcasters. So I am a professional reseller. Not a professional. I am a professional reseller of audio equipment, but I am a real reseller of professional audio equipment. You can find equipment packages at podcastanswerman.com. I also do a podcast for podcasters, and I also produce 17 podcasts, which you can find at gspn.com. GSPN.TV, which is the Generally Speaking Production Network. But yeah, the reason why I go to all these is because pretty much my career full time now is interacting with the new media world and investigating all this stuff and sharing it all online with people. And I guess I've learned that a lot of people don't. It's really weird because for me, listening to all these tech podcasts, listening to this podcast, and really staying up on all of this technology, it just comes in second nature to me. So I don't realize that some of the stuff that I just know as common knowledge, so many of my listeners are like, oh, wow, that's awesome. I never knew that. And it's just like second nature to me. So I have to remind myself that, you know what, this is exciting stuff. What it kind of just seems normal to me is just like really exciting and eye-opening to so many of my listeners. And so I continually want to stay on the edge of what's new out there so that I can bring something of value to all the listeners out there.
Oh, definitely. And we definitely appreciate that from you. Well, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
It's not podcast related, but I had to ask, since this is Geek is Chic. If you could describe yourself or be one gadget, what gadget would you be and why?
One gadget, I would say I would be the iPhone.
And why is that?
Well, because, I think that it does so many different things, but it's all kind of related to one thing. And that's who I think I am. I do so many different things. I do professional audio gear and I do podcast webinars to teach people how to podcast. I do a podcast about podcasting. I do podcasts about TV shows. But really, when it all comes down to it, it all fits into one package, which is my purpose in life, which I believe my purpose in life is to educate people, to entertain people, and to encourage and inspire people. And so it all fits into one neat package, but it just turns out that I do it in multiple different ways.
Exactly. That works out. Good answer. I support it.
Sweet.
Yeah, iPhone's always a good gadget to pick. Hopefully we can get some new ones in June, but keeping my fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience about Podcamp and just a little bit about your experience in the trip to New York City. And thank you for sharing with me while you were in New York City. I definitely had a blast getting to know you more.
Well, thank you for being a part of the community and hanging out with us that weekend. It definitely made our time more enjoyable.
All right. Well, say hi to Stephanie for me.
Will do.
All right. Thank you so much, Cliff.
Thank you. Alrighty, that wraps up that interview that I did I did for Andrea Zuniga. And I figured that this would be just a perfect episode to fit right into the podcast Answer Man and to do two things. Number one, to let you guys hear about, the different take on Podcamp NYC and the follow-up to that, and also to help promote Geek is Chic, and that's geekischic.org, and that's GeekisChic. So geekischic.org. Check out Andrea Zuniga's podcast. She's been a part of the GSPN.TV community for quite some time, and she's a perfect example of what you can do if you just decide to hit the record button. And if you're interested in learning how to podcast, I do have webinars, and I am available. If you want, you can even request a specific topic for a webinar, and I'll put one on, and we'll schedule it and have lots of other people join us. So if you're interested at all, go ahead and email me, cliff@gspn.tv. Again, that's cliff@gspn.tv. If you have any questions or comments for the Podcast Answer Man show, please do send those to our voicemail line. That would be awesome. That is area code 859-795-4067. Area code 859-795-4067. And again, I want to say thank you to Evan Agee at ageedesign.com. That's AGEE design.com. Go to /podcast and tell him you heard about him from the Podcast Answer Man show. He'll give you 20% off of any work that you need for website design, graphic artworks. He does a wonderful job, personally recommended by me. And go check it out, ageedesign.com/podcast.